Well, I warned you guys. I said, please don't be weird about Chappell Roan. I made this video. 300,000 of you saw it. Apparently Bo and Yang also might have seen it, because he referenced it in this interview while interviewing Chappell Roan. That's insane. Anyway, clearly some of you didn't take my advice, and now we're here. Alright, so a couple months ago, I made a video called Please Don't Be Weird About Chappell Roan. And in that video, I talked about how Chappell, a rising pop star from the Midwest, was courting a lot of discourse due to the content of her songs, her political stances, and her sudden upward trajectory in the public eye. What I didn't touch on too much, though, was the reception that Chappell has gotten from her own fans, or so-called fans. A conversation that is now being brought up due to a TikTok that she posted yesterday as of recording this, and unsurprisingly, people are being kind of shitty and unempathetic. So we're going to play the TikTok in question, and then I'm going to say some things to some parasocial weirdos that they're not gonna like.
I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that it's normal. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. It doesn't mean I want it. It doesn't mean that I like it. I don't want whatever the fuck you think you're supposed to be entitled to whenever you see a celebrity. I don't give a fuck if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's fucking weird. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior, okay?
So maybe if that's your first time seeing that TikTok and you don't really keep up with Chappell Roan outside of like her music and her performances or whatever, you might be like, okay, that's a little weird, that's a little aggressive, I don't know why she's talking about her fans in this very reactive way. And I think that there is a little bit more context that I can provide before we talk about the actual contents of what she said there. So, like I said, this TikTok does not exist in a vacuum. In fact, Chappell Roan has talked about this weird behavior from fans before. For example, I think a month or two ago, she shared some stories on Drew Afuelo's podcast about how she doesn't really like being approached by people while she's just like out in the world doing her thing, and that some of these fan interactions have started to cross the line a bit.
Those start to be freaks.
Yeah, they
follow
get real.
me.
Yeah, they follow
and
you
like
around.
follow like know where my parents live and like where's my sister works, like all this weird shit. And I'm just like, this is the time when I was like a few years ago that I said if stalker vibes, like family was in danger, is when I would quit. And like we're
Me
there.
too, same.
I think the craziest one is like I was just being a freak in Central Park. And like
As you do.
like rolling around. I was coming up from the somersault. So it was like, and they're like, "Are you Chappell Roan?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Well, can we get a photo with you?"
Just in
And-
case.
Yeah, and the girl was like did this, and she was like, "It's not her. Don't ask for a photo." And I was like, "It's me." And sometimes I'll just ask fans to be like, "Can you not tell anyone that I'm here?"
Yeah.
Because like I don't want this shit to be weird. And they're like, "Yeah, of course, we get it." And so
And did they tell anyone?
I don't know. I left immediately after.
Yeah.
So, point number one that I want to make here after showing that TikTok that she posted and those examples from Drew's podcast is that I think some people are being off-put by the way that she conflates weirdo stalker behavior with like unwanted fan interactions. I've seen a lot of tweets being like, well, I get what she means when she says that she doesn't want to be stalked, but I don't think she should compare that to fans coming up and asking for a photo. And I think those two things are a little bit more related than you'd think, because if you have been stalked by fans who know where your family lives and where your sister works, who's to say that that same stalker is not the one coming up to you in public and asking for a photo? I'll get into this a little bit later, but Chappell Roan is the kind of pop star where she, has had some meteoric success, but she's not like protected at all times by security the way that somebody like Lady Gaga or Beyonce would be. She also does frequently go out in disguise so she can like be with her friends. And if someone does happen to recognize her in that open sort of setting, saying, I personally would understand why she would not want to risk having that type of interaction in public, whether the person behind the interaction had good intentions or not. And personally, I view this TikTok of her vocally asserting that boundary of like, if you see me out in public, I probably don't want to be recognized and I probably don't want to take a picture with you. I think this is Chappell explicitly telling people that that is her boundary. And sometimes that does need to be communicated. I know this because I have had several jobs in my life that have required me to be around famous people. If you are around them frequently and you work around them frequently, you start to get a gauge of which ones are more comfortable and friendly and outgoing and which ones want to just keep their peace and be left alone. And if they want to be left alone, they usually are polite about it, and I don't think it makes them assholes. But if you have never been around a famous person before and you are like out in the open and you happen to see Chappell Roan and you're a Tumblr girly who has too much anxiety to make her own dental appointments, you might not be able to pick up on when somebody wants that boundary kept. So Chappell Roan taking to TikTok to say, hey, I don't like when people come up to me in public, is explicit communication of a boundary that up until this point, her fans have either not picked up on or deliberately ignored. So that's why I think she chose to communicate it this way in this urgent tone. And that leads me to the second part of this discussion, whether or not this sort of parasocial behavior just comes with the job. Now, the main critique that I've been seeing here is people being like, oh, well, this means that Chappell Roan, she's just not ready to be a main pop girly. Like, she's not cut out for it. She doesn't have what it takes. And I just feel like people are, I don't know, getting like really personally offended by her demeanor, by the fact that she's setting these boundaries. And I just want to say, like, I think that's weird. I think if you were personally offended by her take here, that says more about you than it does about her. Here's the thing. I think a lot of Chappell Roan fans view her as being, you know, one of us. Like, she came from the internet, she was very terminally online all throughout her stardom. She's like the furthest thing you can get from an industry plant. She doesn't have rich parents. And so now all of a sudden when she's rejecting the premise that she is owed privacy as a famous person and autonomy as a famous person, the instinct there is to call her ungrateful and unequipped, because you know 1,000 girlies out working the opening act for the festival circuit like she was, who would kill to be in the position that she's in now. And these are the same motherfuckers yapping about how Taylor Swift needs to fly a private jet everywhere she goes, because God forbid the common folk disturb a little bit of her privacy. And that's not me saying that Taylor Swift is not entitled to her privacy and security, that's me saying that you should treat everybody with that same kind of respect. If you saw Beyonce or Lady Gaga or Taylor Swift out in public at some sort of event or restaurant surrounded by paparazzi and security, you would not be like, I right now am entitled to go up and take a photo with them and have a conversation with them. You would likely have the common sense and wherewithal to be like, they probably don't want to be bothered right now. Or you would stand at a distance and like take a video from far away. But because it's Chappell Roan and because you do not view her with the same kind of respect and prestige, there is no barrier of separation. You don't view her as a famous person who is famous on her inherent talent, you view her as a famous person who is famous because she got lucky. And for all the people who were like, oh, well, Lady Gaga would always take pictures with fans, Britney Spears would always take pictures with fans, I guarantee you that all of those women were likely tired of having to be on 24/7 and never getting a goddamn private moment to themselves, but they felt pressure to never address it and to always appear happy and grateful, because look at what happens the moment anybody expresses any kind of discomfort with what's going on. And then of course there's the argument that like, you know, Chappell Roan asked to be famous, like she asked for this life. If you don't want people coming up to you in public and violating your boundaries or whatever, then don't pursue music. And I just feel like there's this issue now where like stan culture and like being really tight-knit within online communities has made people like unable to access their empathy. Like, this has become their social circle and all they know, so they, like, don't know how to treat human beings like human beings, whether they have a platform or not. And I just think that's so interesting, because if some of these people had, like, an ounce, like, a mere inch of the fame that Chappell Roan is currently experiencing, they would fold so goddamn fast. Like, I just know, in my hardest of hearts, that some of these people who are critiquing Chappell for wanting to pursue fame, only for that experience to far outpace her ability to handle it, have been in a situation where they had a tweet or a TikTok unexpectedly go viral, and some mean bitch with an anime profile picture made some kind of comment to them about their ugly jeans or their crusty makeup, and they had a fucking panic attack and privated all of their social media and went to their therapist and cried about how randos on the internet are judging them despite not even knowing them personally. I know for a fact that 97% of you can't handle that shit, and you're all about mental health advocacy and supporting female artists until one of them gets on TikTok and says that she is struggling mentally with a newly acquired platform. And just so nobody misunderstands me, I'm not even saying that you can't critique Chappell's art. If you want to get online and say, I don't like Chappell Roan's album, I think she's overrated, I don't like her politics, it's her fault that I'm experiencing weird feelings when I listen to Good Luck Babe. All of that is valid because you're critiquing the art, and, critiquing art is a part of the, process of engaging with it. Or, when a celebrity crosses the threshold to become problematic, I think most of the time that is fair game enough to criticize. I think some people definitely go a little too far with it, especially in the context of talking about people's relationships and their children. But to critique Chappell Roan for saying, I don't owe you a photo, she's right, she doesn't owe you motherfuckers a photo. She doesn't owe you anything. If you want to put your art out there and perform for people and make music, there is nothing in your theoretical fame contract that says that you are required to stop whatever it is that you're doing in public and interact with fans, whether they are well-intentioned or not, because from what it sounds like, she has had some pretty bad experiences with fans who have crossed the boundaries into her personal life. And if she wants to restrict herself from having access to her fans because of those experiences as a way to keep herself safe, who are you to be like, well, I think she's ungrateful, I don't think she's cut out for this? Especially because she's the it girl right now, so 90% of the people who are insisting that, she take a photo with them are doing it in bad faith to gain social capital from the situation. I personally have had some wonderful interactions and conversations with celebrities in a non-meet and greet setting where, fan exposure is not expected. And in those situations, I haven't asked for a photo because most of the time, it does ruin it for them. It makes them feel like you're treating them like a zoo animal and not a human being. And sure, I guess you could argue that celebrities don't deserve that modicum of grace because they're rich and they're famous and they have access to power and capital that we common folk never will have access to. Fine, whatever, take that cynical approach to it. But then don't be surprised when they don't fucking like you. Because being a part of stan culture and most online fandom communities makes people fucking crazy. It rids you of your empathy, it encourages groupthink and dehumanization. And this isn't a problem that just stops with Chappell Roan. There are a lot of actors on Broadway right now who are limiting their ability to stage door after performances because they're having weird, unwelcome interactions with fans. A few weeks ago, I went to a convention where a lot of the cast of RuPaul's Drag Race were doing meet and greets, and I literally watched somebody trauma dump about their suicidal ideation in front of a queen that they were actively paying to do a meet and greet with. You guys are fucking weird, bro. You're weird. And nobody wants to say that because then you're usually met with a response of oh, I have anxiety. I'm neurodivergent. I don't understand social cues. This is my first time outside. I have all these issues that somehow make it so that I can't be held accountable whenever I make somebody uncomfortable. Fuck you, man. You are responsible for your own behavior. Ultimately, if Chappell Roan decides that she doesn't want to be famous anymore, if she decides that she doesn't want to put out music anymore, that is ultimately the fault of fans that have gone out of their way to stalk her and her family and make her uncomfortable. And if she's going to group the well-intentioned fans in with that, I don't blame her, because in this day and age, especially when you're famous, especially when you're a woman, you can't trust anybody. I am once again asking for you to not be weird about Chappell Roan. Please stop being weird about Chappell Roan. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Hopefully this is the last time I have to deliver this warning, but I have a feeling that I will be back to talk about Miss Chappell and her fans in some capacity relatively soon. If you disagree with anything that I've said today, that is totally fine, and you can come yell at me about it at all of these social media links listed in this beautiful link tree, which can be found in the description down below. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.